Have you ever felt so overwhelmed or stressed out that you were sure you couldn't make it through the next hour, let alone the next day, week, or month? I felt like that most of the time during the last decade of caring for Lance. Nobody could carry my burdens for me, but thankfully, I had many cheerleaders in my life who walked alongside me, cheering me on, supporting me, encouraging me, motivating me, and simply letting me know that I wasn't alone. And I have many cheerleaders in my life now as I move forward. Jenna was and is one of my many cheerleaders. And Jenna, you and I have talked about this a lot during the past year.
Such an important part of life and something that we have had a lot of conversations about. So this is something that I always love talking about because it's so near and dear to my heart and something that has been important for me over the years, not just to have cheerleaders, but also to be one. So a fun episode for me to record.
Yeah. And when we first started talking about this, the word cheerleader instantly made me think of the cheerleaders with pom poms. And that's not what we're talking about, but it is a good way to think about how to be a cheerleader.
I think so. I think to me, it gives the image of someone who believes in what they're cheering for. So I think about something like a football game and a team that's very far behind. There's, maybe not doing as well. The cheerleader's job essentially is to continue to believe in them even when they're behind or struggling or having a hard time, or maybe they're not believing in themselves. And so that's an important part of that process to me. One of the things that I've always said is my job as a blank, whatever that is, fill in the space, as maybe it was a personal trainer, as a mom, as a spouse, as a good friend, as a sister. My job is to believe in you when you don't believe in yourself. And I, when my kids have been involved in different sports, I tend to be a screaming maniac. So I like to take on that role in a very personal way, as well as just in a generalized way, even with strangers. So
Sometimes that screaming maniac is not what we need, though. And you and I have talked about that before, Jenna, that sometimes just sitting with someone or just walking alongside them quietly is being a cheerleader as well. And that was oftentimes what helped me the most, was somebody that I knew was just there supporting me in the way that I needed to be supported.
that's an interesting point, because one of the things that I have struggled with over the years, and we've talked about this in previous episodes, is blind optimism. I tended toward that because I don't like when things are bad. I don't like negativity. I don't like seeing people be hurt or struggling. It produces just a tremendous amount of anxiety in me. And so that's something I've had to face in my own life and deal with, being uncomfortable and being okay with being uncomfortable, especially when it helps serve someone else. So that's not natural for me to be quiet and just sit with someone in their struggle or their grief or their hardship. I've had to learn that knowing you has helped me along in that process tremendously. So thank you for helping to teach me how to do that and tap into that part of myself. And obviously you found that there were times when that was more helpful. How how did that like manifest itself in your life? Like, how did you know when that's what you needed and to be able to communicate that? Or how did you walk through that? Because that's not super obvious that you need one or the other. And yet I think you were able to communicate that to me pretty well. Or I think maybe I would defend people, that you would say, this person said or did this thing, and I would say, like, not defending, but I always try and give like an opposite perspective. Maybe they were just trying to be positive, and you would say, that's not what I need right now. Oh, oh, gotcha.
right? That blind optimism, I got that a lot, or the toxic positivity. And that is not cheerleading. That is, I felt like that was always a way to just brush me off, to silence me, to say, I don't really want to hear this. If you look on the bright side, then everything will be okay. And that is not true. That was not the life that I lived. It was a very challenging life. So I think that what really helped me was I sort of surrounded myself with people who just knew how to be that way so that I didn't have to tell them. But there were people in my life who, you know, were not always in tune with that. And I would have to say something. And I know I offended people by saying that, but I had to do that. It was self preservation for me.
I think that's an important point too, just being honest and straightforward with people. And, I guess if you do offend someone, then maybe that's not where they should be in your life. Maybe that's not the position they should hold in your life. And if someone, if I as a friend am trying to support you in the best way possible, and you communicate to me, hey, can we just sit here and be quiet? Or can you just listen and not try to fix any of my problems? That would help. Then if I'm really interested in supporting you, I'm going to listen to that, whether it hurts or not. That's not the point. I'm here to support you. So I think that's important that you were able to learn how to be honest about that.
I think that's just how I am. I just kind of, I've always just said what's on my mind. I didn't always do it in the kindest way when I was caring for Lance, and that wasn't on purpose. It was just because I was so tired of always having to look out for everyone else when I was just so exhausted. But I did still communicate it. For me, being a cheerleader in the situation that I was in then and now, during grief and loss, is it just means allowing someone to process whatever they are going through at that time and just supporting and encouraging them in the way that they need. And it's not enabling them. That's not what I'm saying. And it's not allowing them to stay stuck. When you truly care about someone, you want to be there for them in the way that they need, but you also want to make sure that they are moving forward. And there have been times when I've been stuck in my grief and people have come alongside and said, maybe we need to move forward a little bit in whatever way they did. So that's really important too.
Good points. Not just being there to encourage and someone in their maybe progress or achievement, but also being there to encourage and someone's lack of progress and to maybe prod them on to being what they're capable of being. As a friend, say if I'm giving you encouragement or advice, have you found over the years that more generalized, you can do this, is more beneficial, or is the more specific, like, wow, I saw that you got in your car and drove today without being scared or stressed, and good job on that progress? Is the more generalized or more specific helpful, or does it kind of depend on the day?
I think it just depends on the day, it depends on the situation. And a lot of times, a generalized statement can sound more like a brush off. So the more specific things like what you just said about driving, I mean, just acknowledging, recognizing that you see where the person's at, what they've come through, and that they're moving forward. I think that that's really important. But sometimes it is just a generalized statement, and that's okay as long as it's not meant to make the person stop talking about whatever they're talking about.
I guess I'd never thought of like an overly generalized encouragement as sounding or coming off as if you're trying to silence the person. That's never because I've never thought about that, but I suppose that could feel that way, especially if you're trying to express some very challenging things you're going through and someone says, "You're doing great." That might not feel, that might not come off as well as you think it's going to. Um, that's good to know though. And I've always tried to see very specific things to say, "Oh, I see you've grown in this area." And I've always tried to watch for things that maybe the individual doesn't see themselves, because I think we miss a lot of things in ourselves as we grow and progress and move forward. We don't always see our own progress because we're focused on a specific goal. And maybe that progress is manifesting itself in other areas of our life. So I think if we have a friend or a family member or just a supportive person in our life that can see the things that we're missing, kind of see our blind spots and bring those to our attention, that's like maybe one of the most powerful things that we can have in our life, because that's like someone seeing you on a completely different level. So hopefully you've had some of that.
I've had a lot of that over the years, and that's been really great. It's been very helpful, especially as I move forward. When I was caring for Lance, those encouragements were nice, those specific statements, but I lived in such a fog then. I think the most important thing for me was just realizing that people saw, well, that they saw me and that they saw that I was struggling and what I was going through. And
That's a good point. Just having someone be able to see that what we're going through is challenging is huge. And that's not even necessarily an encouragement per se. Like, you're not saying, "Oh, good job." You're just saying, "Oh my gosh, that is really hard. I'm sorry you had to go through that." That's an encouragement because it means that someone saw that what you did was a hard thing and you overcame it. Like, by that very statement, you're saying, like, "Oh, you're overcoming hard things." And, I think we can be encouraging by reminding people, not just not just encouraging them moving forward, but reminding them of where they've been. So there's always the opportunity to say, "Hey, you know, you started here and look at how far you've come. Look at what challenges and obstacles you've overcome." Just reminding people, because sometimes when we're in the midst of our struggle, we forget. I don't know if you did, but I have, like, "Oh yeah, that was really hard." Um, was that helpful to you, or did you have people that did that, reminded you of what things you've overcome and the challenges that you've faced and the success that you've had?
I did have people do that at times. And for me, while I was caring for Lance, I didn't find that helpful because it seemed like they were more pointing out, look how strong you are. And I didn't feel like I was strong. I felt like I had to do this. I felt like there was no other choice. And by them saying, you're so strong doing this, it made me feel like they didn't see how hard the struggle truly was, because I did these things out of necessity, not because I was strong. It was because there was nobody else to do them. If I didn't take care of all the things that needed to be taken care of, then Lance wouldn't be okay. And that's what I needed people to recognize in that situation. So saying that I was strong, or saying, look at all the things that I had been through, that I had made it through, because I felt like I was barely hanging on.
Wow. That sounds a lot like something that I've thought before, which I guess I never really related it to your situation. So that's really interesting. I have had people tell me in the past, "You're so strong. That's cool that you were able to overcome that." And I always felt like I didn't overcome it because I'm strong. I overcame it because I put in the effort, because I chose to. I made the choice to. It wasn't easier for me because I'm stronger, right? It was just as hard for me as it would be for you. I just made the choice to do it. And that's not always maybe as well received by the commenter as one might hope.
Well, I do find it encouraging now, but I'm not in that incredibly stressful situation anymore where I feel like I have no other choice but to go on. I can rest now. I couldn't rest then. I didn't have that opportunity. I didn't have that choice. But I did make the choice every day to fight, to do the things that I needed to do. So
I think something that I've learned over the years is to say, I'm proud of you, or wow, I see what you did there and that was incredible. Good job. Um, I think that makes more sense. And it's been much better received. As I said, I'm so proud of you. You did that. Because I think then that recognizes and honors the effort that's put in by the individual rather than that thing where people would say, oh, you're so strong. I could never. Yes, you could. Yes, you could. But you'd have to dig deep to do it. Right.
right. And that's the truth of it. And you did say that to me. In fact, I thought it was so strange the first time you said it that you were proud of me. And then I started thinking about it and I was like, that felt really good. You know, people don't normally say that, or they didn't normally say that to me other than my mom. So that is something that's really good. Instead of saying you're so strong, say I'm proud of you for whatever you're doing.
Facing a hardship is something that everyone is going to encounter at some point in their life. Taking on that challenge despite uh, lack of resources, lack of knowledge, lack of competence, whatever you think, whatever thing that you're saying in your head, I can't do this because X, still choosing to take on that challenges despite your insufficiency is, I think, one of the most powerful and amazing things that we as human beings can do. And so then the second most powerful will be recognizing that in someone else and communicating to them.
I agree because I felt like everything that I did while I was caring for Lance, I was so out of my element. I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing the best that I could and I put forth my best effort. I did everything in my power. And for someone to recognize that, that was huge.
I'm glad that you had people around you that did that for you. And I wish you had had more. And I guess to me, what I take away from it is to never withhold that opportunity to tell someone I'm proud of them or to recognize when they've um, stepped up to a challenge and taken it on voluntarily. If I see that, I need to say, good job. I'm proud of you. Wow, that was awesome. And
Yes,
that's what we all need.
it is. Yep. And I'm very thankful for all of my cheerleaders. Thank you for being one of my cheerleaders, Jenna. I appreciate you so much while I cared for Lance and as I move forward in my life. Well, thanks for joining me, Jenna, and I will see you next time.
Okay, bye.